Hi, everyone. I think we can start. My name is Liza. I'm community manager of the World Vapers Alliance, and this is Twitter's space discussion series of the Vapers Voice. Thank you very much, everyone who is here with us today. Before we start, while you are in our discussion, we would appreciate if you could tweet out about our event to make sure that others can also see that this discussion is happening. And we'll have some time for the questions and answers in the end. So if you have any questions, make sure to press the request button so that we can give you some time to speak, or you could also tweet your questions so that I can read them out. So moving to the topic of the day today, we will be talking about the situation in Ireland. Recently, the Oireachtas Health Committee published a report that includes a vaping flavor ban, plain packaging, and the ban on vaping advertisements. And this proposed legislation will definitely have its consequences on vapers in Ireland and those people who are still smokers and want to quit through less harmful alternatives such as vaping. So to talk about what's going on in Ireland and what exact consequences this legislation will have in case enforced, we invited Frank Monterosso, who runs a vape shop in Ireland, is also a WVA ambassador, and we're very proud to say that, and also a huge vape advocate. So Frank, hello, and thank you very much for being here with us today.
Hello, Liza. Thank you very much for your chance to speak today, and hi to all the people who are listening to this one.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. So before we move on to this proposed new legislation and the report that was published, I just want to ask you about your own personal story as an introductory question. So could you tell us how did vaping help you quit smoking, or how did you learn about vaping, and what is your journey?
Yeah, so my story with vaping goes back 10 years. So 10 years ago, I was a heavy smoker. I was smoking nearly 25 fags a day. I had a very stressing job at the time, so cigarettes, from my point of view, were like a moment of escape, from the stress, a moment for me to chill. But it was a bad habit, and I realized when I start to see a downhill on my personal health, So I had this friend of mine who introduced me to vaping. I nearly knew nothing about vaping at the time, honestly to say. And so I started with the little kit in Italy, and it was like love at first sight. I like to say, because you can say in 2 weeks I was out of cigarettes, and I was really an heavy smoker. Vaping catch me up immediately because I really like the tech things. I mean, inside the tech, everything that is tech just hooks me up. So in this case, when I realized I can satisfy my need of nicotine and my pleasure of nicotine, I would say, with the thing that was a technological thing, was a plus for me to like vaping. After that, I just start to make my own research about vaping, about the technology behind it, and like a proper geek, I start to build my own vape, and from there I'm here now. So I'm a supporter of vaping industry, as you know. I want to tell people how much vaping can help them to quit the smoking habit, and to let them be sure that there is nothing harmful in vaping. Where is the harm is in cigarettes, is in smoking, in combustion, not in vaporizing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here today to let that be clear.
That's great to hear. Thank you for telling your personal story, Frank. So let's move on to the general situation in Ireland, because that's very interesting. What was happening before the report was actually published? We know that according to the Department of Health survey, it was conducted in 2019, 5% of the population use vaping products, which means that there are 200,000 people minimum who use vaping products in Ireland. And before I ask you about the proposed legislation and the report, I just wanted to ask you, what is the general background right now at the moment in Ireland, and what challenges have vapers been experiencing so far?
Yes, Lisa, looking at Ireland and vaping, there are very nice aspects and very bad aspects. So the situation is not completely clear at the moment, as you can imagine also by the last report from the Electoral Committee. There are a lot of people vaping in Ireland. Irish people like to vape, and there are a lot of people in Ireland that not only they like to vape, but they can leave the smoking habit in doing so. And this is very important. The number you have reported, 200,000, I think now it's something more, I would say, because this has become very fast. There are a lot of people that are embracing vaping to quit their habit. So I think this number is growing at any moment now. Bad aspect of the Ireland situation from a legislation point of view, I would say there is not here like in other EU countries the 18 plus age to vape, and that's for me is very bad because it's an all that must be closed. So I'm also in contact with Vape Business Ireland, and with them we are asking to bring this law in effect. There is a project of law in 2019 was raised to raise the age to 18, but so far it has not seen the light, unfortunately. But Irish government is now working on it, and shortly there will be the new bill, as you know. Together with that, probably there will be also a system of license for the vape shop. That is something also UK is trying to embrace. And this, from my point of view, is a good thing. So, as you can understand, the government at the moment is in the pre-scrutiny phase of approving the 2019 bill into law in order to give new rules on vaping. But before being voted, the bill is scrutinized by a committee, which can invite representatives of groups who will be affected by the bill to meet and discuss the bill itself. In this phase, the committee has also made a meeting with the Irish Vaping Association like ETRA and Vaping Business Ireland, which, as you know, have supported the importance of flavors for adults who want to stop smoking. The problem is that the report we are speaking about that they issued last week turned the blank eye on this, completely blank eye. They just supported, as you can see, as you can understand, the World Health Organization narrative about the risk of vaping, emphasizing the appeal of vaping have on children, the need to restrict vaping in public areas, have plain packaging, and ban flavors except tobacco. Obviously, this is a disastrous point of view, because
right.
you can understand.
May I interfere here, because I actually wanted to ask you about that. As you said, so there will be a ban on, there is proposed a ban on all flavors except tobacco, a ban on advertising and the plain packaging, right?
Yeah, I confirm.
So what do you, first of all, you more or less explained already what is the legislation, like process for the legislation to pass. But I also want to ask you, most importantly, what do you think will be the consequences of all of those regulations, especially for vaping community in Ireland?
Yeah. So for the process, as I was saying to you, now we are in the pre-scrutiny phase. So government is gathering all the information to make a proper law, and so they invited the representatives of groups who represent the vapers itself. So I know ETRA and Vaping Business Ireland participate to this, and they supported the importance of all flavors for adults who want to stop smoking. But when this committee made his report, that I want to assure you, there are only recommendations. The government is not in any case has not eyes on its end to take this report and make it into a law. It's just a recommendation from the health committee to ban all flavors. So I confirm you, we are speaking about the flavor ban in all flavors except tobacco. The need to restrict vaping in public areas, and the plain packaging for all the vape products. So this is what it's happening now. This is what we are talking about. Obviously, which will be the consequence of this. The consequence will be a public health disaster, because from my experience, from the experience of my colleagues, less than 10% of people in Ireland vape tobacco flavors. So all people, the most of vapers are on fruits flavors, dessert flavors, cookie flavors. Very few, or just the people who are starting to make the experience, so are in the process to understand what is vaping, what if they like or not, take in consideration tobacco, coming back a week after asking for fruits flavor. So for me, if this is the understanding of the government, if this is what they want to be, it will be a public health disaster. Nevertheless, considering the freedom of consumer choice that is taken off from the consumers themselves.
Thank you. Definitely agree with you on that point, and I hope this can be reversed and counterproductive policies on vaping will not pass, because you mentioned that there are some smart regulations that the government could enforce, like age restrictions, but for some reason the flavors are being fought. So I cannot, since you already described what is the upcoming situation in Ireland and what it has been like so far, I also cannot skip the question of the EU plans generally, because we know that there is an upcoming update of EU's TPD, Tobacco Products Directive, and it will determine the future of vaping, possibly threatening the most successful smoking cessation method in history. So I'm asking this question because there have been already many countries that have gone through this way and have implemented bans on flavored vaping liquids over the past recent years. For example, Estonia, Finland, Denmark, Hungary, and Lithuania, and there is Ireland on its way. So I want to ask you generally about the EU situation, since Ireland is a member state. So do you think vaping is generally under threat in the EU? And if so, then why do you think policymakers do not want to embrace vaping as a harm reduction tool?
Yeah, I would say vaping is currently, but it has been for years now, we have to say, under a serious threat. Next TPD, as you told, will determine, in my opinion, the future of vaping. Because if vaping will be left to live at this point, time will be our ally, because further study and facts will bring new evidence that vaping is not only the best way to quit smoking, but also the best tool to decrease the number of cancer patients, Unfortunately, we have to say a lot of narrative circulating now is misinformed, or worse, made up to make appear vaping as a danger for health. Just to make you an example, not going so far, staying in Ireland, the Irish Heart Association, which is part of the health committee, said some time ago that vaping has worse effects on health than smoking and drinking alcohol combined. So, but obviously without bringing any scientific fact, any proof of that. And if we association like that should protect the health of the consumers, go on pushing a narrative that is not supported by any scientific proof. If they refuse to take in consideration all the evidences provided by independent studies, scientific studies, just to push their own agenda, obviously it will be difficult for policymakers to embrace vaping as a harm reduction tool. It is sad to think that health associations promote a false narrative to support, I have to say at this point, pharma lobby interest instead of a genuine interest towards the community benefit. When you have these actors playing so hard every day to spread misconceptions, you have the impression of being obviously David against Goliath. But I have to say, this is a war. We are at war, and we must fight every day. We cannot have the luxury to relax because otherwise they will take the upper hand. Likely to say, not all the health professionals think this way. We have a lot of customers that come inside our shop saying their general practitioner suggested them to vape instead of smoking, or even trying the patches, of nicotine. Last week, Dr. Garrett McGovern, for example, a general practitioner, made the case through an article published by the journal.ie against the flavor ban and in favor of harm reduction, criticizing basically the last ORCTA's Health Committee report. So what we are doing as a shop, as a vaping advocate, as a vaping advocate, we always talk to our customers about this situation, inviting them to join our fight, to write their own TDs, and let them know how they successfully stopped smoking thanks to vaping. Obviously, staff is a tough job because the misinformation is all over the place, is pushed very, very hard and in subdued ways. But as part of World Vapers Alliance and Vape Business Ireland, we always try to raise our voice to politicians. It is always important to bring to people more and more evidences and invite them to think with their own heads instead of just following what is too many times pushed by the media.
Yeah, absolutely. And what World Vapers Alliance does is also to combat all of these misconceptions and myths about vaping and push the correct and accurate evidence-based information about it so that people understand and policymakers understand and hear the voices of vapers too. Thank you for elaborating, Francesco, and we're slowly moving to our last part of the interview. It's my last question, so I want to remind the audience, if anyone has any questions or wants to speak, we could give you some time in the end. And I just want to end on a positive note, Frank, still, since you mentioned that this is still a report, recommendations, and there is a room to fight back and prevent the counterproductive regulations on vaping to pass. And since you're a vape shop owner, you already mentioned that you're in contact with consumers. I imagine you also helped many former smokers to quit through vaping. And I would like to know, what is your advice to vapers around the world, and consumers, how should we defend vaping in our own countries and globally?
Yes, Liz, I think people who love vaping, shop owners, vape passionates, should invest every day part of their time to make their voice heard loud and clear. If governments understand that vaping is something people really care about, and that is helping them to quit smoking, as I'm seeing at the moment in my shop, you don't know how many people quit the habit of 20, 25 or more. I had customers with 60 cigarettes a day who now are 2 years coming back in our shop vaping completely cigarette free. So if we make our voice be heard. Maybe governments will start to consider better before proposing bans, and limiting the vaping. My suggestion is never let them forget you vote for them, and your opinion matters, because at the end that's the only thing that counts. It's very important that legislation are linked with what people really want and what they think it's good for them. Vaping has the possibility to save 200 million lives all around the world, as World Vapers Alliance says itself. It should always be protected and promoted, never banned. If we let other with other, I leave to your imagination to understand what is others instruments and interests stop vaping simply because we don't care enough, or we don't have the strength to make our voice heard, we will have our share of responsibility for losing those lives. This is my concern at the moment, and that's the reason why I'm fighting the best I can to avoid vaping being treated like an harmful thing instead of the revolution that it is, because vaping for me is the revolution of our century, and if embraced will make our communities healthier. Of this I'm completely sure.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thank you for your fight and being loud and defending vaping in Ireland and within the vaping community.
Thank you very much, Liza, for your time. It has been a pleasure for me to speak with you about Ireland today.
To our dear listeners, I just want to thank all of them being here with us today. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Francesco, thank you very much for your time once again. We will be back shortly to discuss more about vaping and policies around vaping globally. I would like to tell you to have a great night or day, depending on where you are. My name is Liza, and this was a discussion called Vapers Voice, hosted by the World Vapers Alliance. And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you very much.